All right. So now that that's over, hello chat, hello folks, hello everyone. It's time to do a bit more compose coding. Hope you all also watched today's AOC live streams and all the ones before it. It's always a great time. You can see that I'm still in the Christmas spirit from the stream that we've done on Friday, I think it was. So that's how we're gonna jump into doing more compose here today. And we are yet again gonna be coding stuff on the KotlinConf app, which is what we've done on previous streams, and using hot reload while we're at it, because there's nothing like too much dog fooding. I don't think I have to advertise KotlinConf that much anymore, because the CFP has now finally closed, so we are in the process of sorting out the talks, which is going to take a while, but we'll make sure that we find the best possible speakers and topics out there. But I suppose you should still get your ticket if you have not done that yet, so let's look at the website anyway. So as you can see, we have workshops and ticket and regular conference tickets both open. So if you take a look there, you'll see that we have wonderful workshops from a variety of people. We have, for example, the coroutines workshop. We have a KMP advanced workshop. We're going to have a KTOR workshop. We'll have a compose multi-platform workshop with Victor, who was just on the AOC stream, and myself. So we have all of these great things you can tune in for. And yet again, there are also the regular conference tickets that you can grab for yourself to watch the sessions and to, be there, meet people in person, thank an open source library author for their contributions, and that sort of stuff that you might be able to do at KotlinConf. So with that, let's take a look at where we are with our app. One of the things that we've done on the last stream was the main header of the app. Let's actually run this on JVM. And once that launches, I can pull up that app, put it here, and we can take a look at what was it, the main header. So I'm just going to comment out all the other things within the gallery, which is the easiest way to sort out our previews. And once that does a hot reload, we can see that I've actually finished up this component since the last stream. So now we have these multiple different variations of the main header. We have the one which has a clickable now button that can toggle between different states. There's also a filter button here that would show you just the bookmarked stuff within the schedule. And we have this search icon, which launches us into a search. This also has a clearable text field. And if we navigate that back, that also, goes back to the previous state. And in theory, it also clears the input text. And then we have a variation of this, which is just a search. We have a variation which is just a top toolbar that can just go back, and then we have a completely blank one as well. And this was a complicated API design problem. On the last stream, we didn't get to the end of this, but I can quickly show what we ended up with in the implementation in the end. So if we take a look here, the bottom example is the simplest one. So that's just going to be a main header title bar component, which takes the info string as a parameter. Then we have the privacy policy variation, which, as you can see, is still the same component, but now it has a start content provided, which is a simple back menu button that could do a click handler if it wanted to. Then moving up, we'll have one of the search variations. So this one actually is a main header container, which is a higher level container on top of the title bar and the search bar. So it basically combines these two components with switching logic between them. So the regular title component is the same as before, but now it's wrapped into this container. Again, it has a search drawable. For that search icon, whenever that's clicked, it switches states for the component. And then The search bar, again, just has an input basically for the search content, and it's able to change that using this lambda. And whenever the close button that appears here at the end of the search field is clicked, that is also, oh sorry, the close button is this back button in this case. That would be what closes the search field. So whenever that's clicked, then this function runs and we just update the state triggering between title and search. And then even more customization for the very first of these previews. The thing is again wrapped in a big container for the main header. The title bar now also has the now button and the bookmark button, which just go into start content and end content as a couple composable parameters. Beautiful, like slot-based API, very convenient to manage and implement actually in Compose. And yeah, then we have a search button that's able to take us to the search state, and the search bar is just the exact same as before. So that's what this API ended up being. So separate search and title bars, and then a container component, which is really just like an animated content that switches between two things. Looking at it now, it's very suspicious that we don't actually have to have this column at the root of this component, because we are just calling another component inside. So let's maybe save this and see if... Yeah, I think that's already reloaded. So yeah, I mean, that keeps working and the layout didn't fall apart. So I think we've optimized away a column layer there. Excellent. So that's the main header. The other thing that we have since the last time is the feedback form, which was an interesting component to build because it has a bunch of inputs and it also has Cody trying to cover up whatever you write into the feedback form. So hello, this is my feedback. As you can see, this component is able to adapt and make sure that it pushes Cody down enough that as we are typing stuff, Cody never actually covers up that text. And we can have a brief look at how that is implemented. So we have a lot of colors that can shift based on selection. So the border colors change pretty dynamically here. And then if we take a look, we have a bunch of manual code to draw the different borders. That's because in the unselected state, if you can, maybe if I zoom this in, it's easier to make out. So when this field isn't selected, we are only drawing a border on the top and the bottom, but when it's selected, we have to have a border on all four sides. And a simple way to do this was just to draw it manually using draw behind. So then we can easily have different colors for all different sides of the border. And it doesn't have to be just the same color all around the component. Now that I'm looking at it, we don't have rounding on the corners. So we kind of have like a half pixel problem here where the lines touch. I'm gonna take a note for that if I'm able to find a pan. So like draw line corner problem. I might have to revisit that a bit later, but I think the design doesn't have any rounding on that field either. So I think, yeah, so that's just a sharp corner. So as long as we can just make sure that we are not off by like half a pixel there, we should be fine. I guess it's gonna be something like subtracting line width, like half of line width from all of these values. And let's click in here. Yeah, it seems like that has connected. Oh, but of course I have to make sure that this is kept at the same level, otherwise we don't have a straight line. Yeah, I think that the top left corner here is probably correct. It's gonna be something like that. I don't want to tinker with that kind of like pixel magic on the stream. So let's not get lost in that. The interesting part I wanted to show is how this component resizes, right? So let's find that part. So the bottom row, which is Cody with whichever emotion is chosen, and then a spacer and the send button is a row on the bottom of this component. And if we take a look at the text field, then that actually uses the basic text field component, and it has a decoration box which puts all of the things that we need around the actual text field. So we are using that to provide a bunch of padding, a bunch of height information, and so on. And interestingly, we have a minimum height for the entire component, so that even with an empty input field, we do have, some height to this entire thing. But then this height can actually adapt. So as this input field grows, which inside a decoration box we can access with inner text field. So as that input field grows in size, the surrounding decoration box can resize, and actually it's this 32 dp padding on the bottom that makes sure that on top of what that inner text field needs for its height, we have some more spacing, and we have something for that Cody to cover up. So if we were to remove that 32 dp padding on the bottom and wait for a hot reload to happen. Oh, I guess we're hitting the minimum size now. So let's remove the minimum size as well. Then we see that this would actually collapse on itself, right? So now as we're typing something, Cody would cover it up. But if we add padding to the bottom and it hot reloads, then we can see that Cody is always just below whatever we've typed in and not interfering with the text input. So that's excellent. Now today for the stream, I wanted to build two components. I think these are probably the final two components. Looking at our board, all of the next tasks are to build actual screens for the app, which is very exciting. I think that's probably going to be next year. But this year, hopefully we can finish all of the components. So feedback form, that's actually already completed. So I'm just going to close the issue because I forgot to do that earlier. And we have two components left here. So scroll indicator and talk card. Now the scroll indicator should be a pretty easy component. It basically looks like this. It's a bunch of circles and this like lengthy rounded rectangle for whichever page is currently selected. If we search for scroll indicator in the design, we can hopefully find a real use of it. So here we can see, for example, that we're supposed to be able to page through different cards, and this lengthy bit in the indicator would show which the currently visible card is. So this would be the first item selected as an example. I don't know if we have a nice example where it's not the first item that's selected. I think we might not, but we can easily imagine how this is supposed to behave. So this is supposed to be a very simple component. We should be able to code this very quickly. So that's the first thing I want to do today, so that we have something that we are definitely achieving. And then there's a great challenge here because it's the card component that we don't have yet, which is kind of the main UI of the application. So as you can see, it will have a title, a bunch of tags, a bookmarking button. It will show the location of the talk. It will have the feedback integration in it. And if we take a look at the schedule, or for example, let's say the feedback pages in the design, we can see that these, based on whether they've already completed, can have different background colors. They can have this now indicator that shows that something is happening right now. And if we tap one of the Codys for feedback, it will actually invoke the feedback component that I was just showing off. So that feedback component will have to be integrated within one of these cards as well. So this is a lot of different states. I don't know if we can cover all of them in one go, but I think we can build a pretty solid card implementation. So that's the idea for today. let's start then with the scroll indicator, as I said, so that we are definitely completing something. And this has, well, it has the item and the scroll indicator separately, but I think we can just look at the scroll indicator immediately. So for this, let's create some new files. So we'll do a scroll indicator preview, which is what we'll want to load inside our gallery. And if we go to the components, we can also create a file for this scroll. So that's going to be scroll indicator.kt. And we can create a composable function, which is a scroll indicator. And we can create a preview for it, which is a scroll indicator preview. I've just realized I have AI completion off because I was doing AOC, so I'll just turn that back on. Hopefully we'll find that useful. We can see that hot reload has already happened, so now we're looking at blank preview. For a quick sanity check, let's just put maybe a styled text in here that says testing, and we can see that that is indeed working. So that's good. I'll try to maybe resize this because we're going to build a relatively small component, and this way we can see more of the code. So the scroll indicator will have to know how many pages there are and which one the currently selected is. So let's do a page count parameter and a selected page parameter. And inside here, we'll essentially have a row of items. We'll have all of these little pager icons next to each other. And these are just rounded rectangles with a given radius, which I think is going to be 50% because, I mean, the non-selected ones are just perfectly round. And they have the scroll indicator fill color. So let's try doing something like that. So we can do a repeat for page count. And for each of these, we can draw this as a box. If I just import that, and the height of this box, okay, that's fine. All is good. So the height of this box is going to be 8 dps, and whenever it's selected, then the width should be 24. So height is 8 dps, and width will be a width parameter that I'll just create as a separate value. Yeah, basically 24 or 8 if it's not selected. That's perfect. And the box isn't going to have contents, so we can delete those parentheses. And we want to make sure that it has a background, which was KotlinConf theme, colors, and there was some kind of name for this, scroll indicator fill color. So we have that. And all we need now is to crop this into shape. Clip this into shape. And that's going to be a rounded corner shape with a %50. That sounds okay. Let's do a save on it. Oh, we didn't update the preview, of course. So this doesn't compile at the moment. So page count, let's say that we have 10 pages and the selected page is page 1. Okay. Of course, I meant page 0, so we can fix that quickly. Now it's page 0 that's selected. And if we take a look at this, we can see that there's 8 dps of gaps between each of the items. So in the row, we can just do an arrangement spaced by 8 dps. Save that. And yeah, that looks like our indicator for sure. That's basically what our design is. And now what I want to do is, as the selection changes, which maybe we can do, Maybe we can do that on click, which is not how it would normally happen, but it's good enough for the purposes of our preview. We can maybe do selected page. Let's put that into a variable. So selected page can be by remember mutable in state. We can start from a 0. Import the extensions for this. We can use the selected page from there, and yeah, we can just add 1 to it and then do a mod 10 so that we don't run out of the page count. Format this a bit, save. And clicking this doesn't do anything yet. Do we still have build failed? Let me just add it into the code to see if we have a successful hot reload. Oh, I never used the modifier, so the hot reload is working. It's just my code isn't correct. So we forgot to apply the modifier for this component, which is why that clickable didn't do anything. So now, as you can see, if I click this, we are paging through. I'll set this back to 10. And what I would really like to do here is animate this change. So instead of just snapping between the states, we can very easily do an animate DPS state. Put that if statement in there. And now as we're changing between 24 and 8 DPs, if I click this, we can see that this smoothly changes. We can also do a bit of randomization here. So we can do random dot, well, I guess next int from like -2 to 2. Make sure to import random. And once a hot reload happens there, if I click this, we should see that we are hopping to random indexes. Sometimes by 1, sometimes by 2. Sometimes we stay in place. And so, okay, that's a bit annoying because we're just running into negative values. So maybe use just positive ones. So now as I'm clicking on here, you can see that we are rotating and switching between the different spots. Yeah, that seems fine. I also don't see a lot of flicker on the width of the entire component, so as something's shrinking, other things are growing at the exact same rate. So this seems stable enough. Maybe I'll leave the preview with like more simple code, something like this. Yeah. Okay, now it flickers. If I do this quickly enough, it does flicker, which is a bit annoying, but we'll have to see if that's a problem in a real app. I suspect we might be fine. It's also going to be centered anyway. So yeah, that's a scroll indicator. Again, I did say this would be one of the simplest components, so it literally does fit on the screen at the same time. Yeah. I'm happy with that. Let's maybe put this corner shape into a property. So this can be scroll indicator shape, so that we don't keep allocating it. And other than that, I think we're good. Excellent. So let's, oh, we're on a random branch right now. I'll clean that up later. That's okay. So for the main header, we did a bug fix, so remove unnecessary column. And then, let's AI generate a commit message here. Add scroll indicator component implemented a new scroll indicator composable in the UI components library. Yeah, I think we're good without the detailed description. But we should add that to the gallery. So I'll just make sure that we don't commit all the commented out bits. So scroll indicator preview. This can actually be internal because we're calling it from the same module anyway. And so now if we'll take a look at the diff, it's the new file and the new line. So we can commit that, and I'll sort out things so that this goes on some branch. Cool. So one done, one to go. I imagine the card is going to take us a bit more time, so bear with me while we try to recreate this thing in Compose. At least getting started will be very similar. Let me just position this so we can sort of see both this and our editor at the same time. Maybe like this. We'll also need the app to go somewhere. Okay. So this is the card talk. We can probably rename this later, but we'll go with that for now. Again, we need a composable function, and we need a preview for it. Card talk preview. Sounds fine. We'll make sure that we call card talk in there and that we use our little preview helper function for it. And then we can hop over to the gallery. Yet again, just remove everything else that we don't care about at the moment. And this will be the card talk preview. And if I just take a look at the gallery, we can see that this is currently empty, which is fine. So this card will hold a bunch of state that we'll have to manage. So let's start adding that in as parameters. So it will definitely have a title. It will have a bookmarked state, which is a Boolean. And I imagine that we'll want to have an onBookmark function as well for whenever the icon is clicked. Then we have speakers, which is essentially a single string, which is going to go here. Actually, we might want to look at a real usage of the card instead of the design example. So yeah, we have a bunch of speakers here. Then we'll have, well, actually above the speakers, we have a list of tags. So that can be a list of string perhaps for a start. We'll have a location and a bunch of pieces of text. So again, location string and the time string and I guess a time note, which is what I'm gonna call that in 30 minutes label. We can think about that later of where that data comes from. For now, we're just doing the design part. We have a parameter for whether it's a lightning talk. So that's a Boolean for showing this little orange icon. And what else? I think that's about it, at least for a start. And then we can actually see that as we're searching, we're also meant to highlight whichever tag matches something that the user has set up as part of the filters. And I imagine, yes, we also need to be able to highlight text and probably the names of speakers at some point. So if someone's searching for Kotlin, we want to show that Kotlin was in fact part of the talk title, and that's why we've added the results. So ideally, we would be able to do that kind of highlighting as well. You also need a state for a talk that has already passed. That's very true. Yeah, so we have talks with white backgrounds, which are the upcoming ones, and then past events. Oh, and this of course ties into this now label that can also appear within a talk card potentially. Yeah. I mean, we do have this kind of state already. So with the now button, we have before current and after states. I think we'll do something like that for the talk card as well. So I'll just copy this card talk state, and well, this can go somewhere around the time info. Probably, I don't know, time state. Yeah, this state sounds like it would be the entire state of the entire card. Yeah, we'll just do something like that again. All the variables we have here and the state classes, we can refactor this easily later on. I imagine that we'll group all of this information into a single talk object of some sort, and that's what we'll actually be passing in to the component anyway. But for now, I'll just have a lot of individual components all exploded on the parameter list so that we can move along with implementing the design. Okay. Oh, and then again, we have the feedback state as well. We have a lot of things that we can do. But let's get started from the top here. So first things first, this is going to be a column. Generally speaking, we'll have a bunch of things below each other. And the first thing we want to put up is a header 3, which contains the title. So we'll use a styled text, and we'll call this just title. Oh, sorry, we need to pass in the title parameter. And we want to do a style, which is KotlinConf theme, typography, header 3, and it has a color, which is just primary text. I believe that's the default, so we don't need to specify that part. And now I realize that our hot reload is not going to work because we're missing a ton of parameters here. So let's quickly come up with some information for a talk. Let's maybe hop over here and just grab some strings. So let's say that this is our talk title. Then yeah, let's just AI autocomplete all that. That seems fine. It generated us some random things. Speakers, let's steal some speaker names as well. List of topics, let's add maybe workshop here as one of the examples. On bookmark, we can just skip that for now. Location, let's make that a bit longer. Let's make sure that it's a lightning talk so that we display that UI as well. The timing, so these are workshops. What about a regular talk? Yeah, looks very similar. So actually, let's go to some of our service events and just grab some formatted timing from there. The time note, we've seen an example of this somewhere. The time note is like in 30 minutes or something like that. But of course now I can't spot it. There we go. There's like in 10 minutes. That's a good enough example. And let's say that this is happening now. Actually, let's do past, now, and upcoming as the values here. And then this can be happening now. So we can already see that the title is working. That's something. The next thing we should put up here is this little bookmark icon. And I guess that is just an icon so that we don't really have a separate component for it that we would have built. So we can just put an icon there. So we can take a look at some of our other components where we had to do this already. For example, the top menu button has an icon, so we'll just grab all of that code. And in here, we can put this in the same row as the text that we just had. We'll do some imports. And let's start looking at the specs. So this icon would be 24 by 24 dps. So 24 dp. I don't think we need to clip it. It doesn't need a background. It can be a drawable bookmark 24, so we can just hard code. We can just hard code that part. Let's not forget to apply the modifier, which is what we had as a problem before. So we'll make sure that we do that. Import this. Content description will probably be bookmark. And we should add clickability to this in a bit. And for tinting, that's an interesting question. So this is tinted to primary text color. So let's do that. Except, of course, if it's actually orange because it's selected. So we'll need to do these things based on the selection state. So let's do an icon color by animate color. And then if bookmarked, then it can be KotlinConf theme.colors.accent. Oh, orange text. Okay. Orange text. And else it can be KotlinConf theme.colors.primary text, I think. And yeah, we can just, get rid of braces here to compact this a bit. And make sure that we have the operator imported, and the tint color can be icon color, just like this. So if I just save that and let it hot reload, hopefully given that this code compiles. Okay, so now we have that on the end of the row, except if the text is too long. So obviously we want to make sure that this icon's size is preserved. So one way to do that would be to add a weight modifier to the text, so that it only fills the available space for it width-wise. So now if we do this, we can see that the behavior is as we expect. Okay, when this is selected, it should be orange. Let's make sure that we can play with that in the preview. So bookmarked can be mutable state. Do some imports. Why does this not have an import? Oh, mutable state of wasn't imported. There we go. So this can be bookmarked, and then whenever we tap it, we can just invert that state, assuming that it's actually a var that we can modify. So now we have to make sure that this on bookup callback is connected to something. So we can put that on here, on click, or let's make this not a clickable, but I guess this is a toggleable. Yes, that's what we've used elsewhere as well. So we can make this a toggleable component. Its value will be bookmarked. On value change, we want to call on bookmark. Enabled can just always be true, I think, in this case. So we can leave that alone, and then we can specify a role. And in this case, this role is essentially a switch. I think role switch is probably what we've used in other places. So that seems fairly correct. And if I've saved that and I now click this, we can see that we are indeed toggling between colors. Now you might also see that we need to swap out the actual drawable, because we need to fill in the entire little bookmark icon whenever the bookmark is toggled on. So let's make sure that we do that. So if bookmarked, we'll want a res drawable bookmark field 24, and otherwise I have accidentally navigated into generated code. So if it's bookmarked, we use the filled one, otherwise we use the regular one. And if we save that, we should see that it's, as we click it, it updates into filled and it changes colors. Now we do have this ripple effect, which isn't quite great because it's a very, very sharp-edged square. And we could handle that in a couple different ways. I think for now I'll just remove the ripple. So for that, I know we need to just provide a null indication and a null interaction source. So if we do that, you can see that now as I'm clicking this, there's no ripple effect, and we just toggle between the two icons and two colors. I think that should be good enough here as a start. Now it would be nice to also set up this background around the entire thing, which I think we can do here on the top level column. So let's try doing that. So we want to make sure that we add some padding, probably. So we have this top block. This has 16 dps of padding. I think we can. Oh, I guess that padding should go on this row. Now we're gonna have a bunch of columns here. Okay, let me add another one. So what I'll do here is I'll wrap this into one more column, and this column will just be the top block, and then the entire box will be the outer column. So on the outer box we don't need to have padding for now, but I can add that 16 dps of padding on the top. And the outer box can actually start doing the borders and things like that. So we can add a border there, which is, as we can see, it's 1 dp. And color is KotlinConf theme dot colors dot stroke half. And I think it also has an 8 dp rounding. So we should also do a rectangle shape. I mean a rounded corner shape with 8 dps of corners. And if I just format this and make sure it compiles and maybe add names to the arguments and save it, we should see that we now have a card. That's looking pretty okay so far. Don't you wish Kotlin had a ternary condition operator? Not really. I'm pretty good with if-else. In this application specifically, we have a lot of these animate something bys, and as you can see, it actually fits quite nicely with a condition like this. We could of course also convert this, so if we wanted, we could have a when instead, something like this. But I think these are all like quite concise and quite readable already. So this seems fine. All right, we have a title and we have a little bookmark. I think we're probably gonna have to align these a bit more at some point, but let's just keep writing the code and then we'll get back to this. So that's the very top row, and below this we'll have what I can only imagine as a flow row, because we have to display all the categories as chips. So that will be indeed tags for each. And for each of those tags, we'll want to display one of these tags. And this seems like a normal card tag. So I think we actually call that a card tag like this. Did I call it tags? Yes. Why doesn't this compile yet? Because we need to opt in for an API, and because we need to decide whether they're selected. Like this. And if I save that, we'll see that all the tags pop up. And because this is a flow row, we can see that they automatically reflow as I make the window smaller and larger. So that already works quite nicely. We can take a look at the header box, which we can see actually has 12 TPs of gaps. So again, we can go for an arrangement spaced by 12 TPs this time. And if I save that, we'll see a bit of space between the title and the tags. And then between the tags themselves, we also want to have an arrangement. So this is the horizontal arrangement. And if we just check the design real quick, we need 4 dp space between them. So if I save that, then this should match the design. And that looks pretty good. So the next thing that we need here is another style text component. Again, I'm having trouble just placing all these windows in a way where we can see them at the same time. But if we scroll down here, we can see that this is supposed to be secondary text color. And apparently it's a text 3, which I think is really just text 2 in the design. We should probably get that fixed. So I'll just take a quick note. Card, speaker, name, text style, so that we double check that later. Would Gemini Figma to compose work here? I honestly do not know. I don't know how that integration works. But I mean, as long as it generates compose code, it should get us pretty close, because we are coding with compose multi-platform here. So this app is gonna run on desktop, Android, iOS, and web. But again, it's all the same APIs as just Jetpack Compose anyway. Is the setup of the plugin dev system documented somewhere? Yes, absolutely, and I really should have highlighted this as well. So we can take a look at the Compose Hot Reload repository on GitHub. This is what I'm using to have the desktop app instantly update as I'm saving the file after changes. So this is a new experimental thing that we are working on, primarily built by Seb Selmayr, who we also saw popping up in the YouTube results here. So you can take a look at that video on his channel, for example, for a basic introduction of how this all works. But the gist of it is that you need to add a Gradle plugin to your project, and then instrument it with that Gradle plugin. Your JVM desktop app using Compose can do hot reload. So we can see that if I take a look at my build config here, I am using the Compose hot reload plugin. And if we look at the version catalog, you'll also see that other than the hot reload plugin, we are also using custom versions of the Kotlin and Compose compiler, because we have some additional fixes that we had to sneak in there. Right, so getting back to our text. This should be the name of the speakers. I don't think it needs a modifier. We saw the color, but I forgot since a moment ago, so that's secondary text. So KotlinConf theme, secondary text. And again, the style I think is just KotlinConf theme, not body 2, but text 2. And if we save that, we should see it appear. Okay, so far so good. Let's do the place row. That should be an interesting one. So we'll need some kind of divider here. Apparently we've already built a horizontal divider component. Is that? Oh no, this is definitely just for material. Okay, got me for a moment. So we needed a divider somewhere else already. Oh yes, within service events. So we already have the idea of just a horizontal divider within our code. So I think what I'll do is I'll just take that and lift it into a separate file so that it's organized a bit nicer. And of course I managed to lose all the imports, so we'll just fix all of that real quick. Okay, we need a height modifier, and we need an offset, compose geometry. There we go. So I'm pretty sure the service event thing looks the same as what we need here. So we can just call divider, check the thickness of the line. It's indeed 1 dp. So thickness 1 dp, and then color is going to be, is it stroke half? It's stroke pale, apparently. And we should make sure that there's also something below this line. So for this place component, I'm pretty sure that we have already built something. Let me just double check that real quick. So we had the service event, which looks a lot like this. So the service event actually contains a road just like that. But do we not have another component for this? I guess we might not have that as a separate component. So yeah, this is a good lesson in organizing our code. I think we should be able to take this exact same thing, just the implementation of a service event, and reuse it here within our talk card. Except this also has a lightning icon. Okay, it's not quite the same. We're not going to reuse it. We're going to duplicate. So a service event was implemented with this item, so we'll just steal the code of that and then customize it to our needs here. So I'll drop that down here. And I think this would be the location in our case. Whether it's now would be, we had some kind of state variable for this, right? Time state. So we can check whether that is now. And then if we have a note, oh, that's a good note. This should be optional. So we can make that a nullable string. So if the time note is not null, we can put in our note. And I think we'll always have a time for each event, so we don't need to do a null check for this. So I'll just put that in as is, and I'll get to the chat in just a moment. I just want to make sure that what we have so far looks okay. And yeah, we need to make some formatting changes, but generally speaking, we are headed in the right direction. Okay, you're using 31.1. Would you need to be brave enough to test 31.2? Oh, that's fair enough. I can bump that. Compose, hot reload. I swear I've checked the latest release here 3 days ago. How did I miss this? I guess I was just checking for 31. So yeah, sure. We'll just bump that to 31.2. That sounds good. I assume that for that we should rerun the application, so let me do that. Why doesn't the IDE pick up imports? Yeah, I think we have an open issue for copying between files and preserving imports. You should look that up on the issue tracker and vote for it. 31.2 is scaring me. Well, I mean, you just told me about it. What am I gonna do? Not try it? Okay. I mean, we're looking good so far. Our component still looks fine. I can see that our colors are definitely off. So like this should be a card stroke border on the entire thing, and that apparently is not correct. So this should be okay. I guess we're still re-importing the project. Okay, maybe that's the pale color. Okay, that looks good. So this is stroke color pale, and this is card stroke as the border. It's 15% black. And then if we are in dark mode, this is 20% white, card stroke color, card pale, color pale color, 20% white. Does it change between the different variations? Not in dark mode. What about this one? 15%, 15%. This technically changes, but they're the same actual color. I think we're good. I think these are the correct colors. So I think we're good with this implementation. Okay. So let's make sure that we fix the text styling next, because that seems to be off here. So first of all, this first piece is a text 3 again, which is a bit annoying. I think all of these should be just text 2s. So style is going to be a text 2 here and here and here. That's good. I assume the now label is a text 2 by default, so we don't need to touch that. If I save that, we can already see that all of these became a bit smaller. We also have an ordering problem, so the now label should go after the note. So if I just save that, hopefully we can see that they have indeed swapped around. So now the note is before the now label. Very good. Let's check the spacing on this row next. So seems like it's just space between, and within this box on the right, it should be 8. Should be 8 DPs. And yeah, instead of 12, we want this to be 8 DPs, so they're a bit closer to each other. That looks good. Is there anything else we need to change here? Maybe I can check the font colors real quick. But that seems okay. So that's primary text. This, of course, is note text. And then this label at the end is again primary text. And everything is constrained to one line. So if we just collapse this, well, I guess the now button falls apart, or the now label. So we can do a max lines 1 on that. And if we reload, we can see that it falls apart a bit more gracefully. Of course, we're not expecting that kind of screen size here. Cool. And now we need the little codies. So just so that our thing looks even more like our design, let's collapse this row as well and add another divider, and then try to do a row of codies. Actually, we need to steal the first piece of style text from here. So within this next row, we'll have a text which just says, how was the talk? If we save that and it hot reloads, we can see it appear. Of course, we're missing a lot of padding. Is it just 16 DPs on each of these? Yes, it's 16 DPs here, and it's oh, it's 14 DPs here. That is strange. But surely this block also has padding on the left and right. Yes, it has 16 DPs of padding. Okay. The design is confusing me slightly, but I'll just steal the configuration of the previous block and copy it over onto this row. And yeah, that looks fine. Time to add some Cody emotions here, which again is going to be, well, it's going to be a small row. I don't think I want to wrap it into a separate one, so I'll just put a modifier with a weight 1 here to push the contents apart, and then we'll add 3 Codys. So we'll have a negative Cody, we'll have a Cody with a neutral emotion, and we'll have a Cody with a positive emotion, except I've messed up the order. And I guess we also need to have a selection state on each of these. So we'll just make those false. And if it reloads, we can see that Cody indeed appears. That's pretty cool. Now these Codys are also a bit too large. So apparently this padding can be smaller. Let's try adding the padding just horizontally for a second. And yeah, the design also had 14 of vertical padding, so let's do 14 dps vertically and see if that works out nicely. Oh, this should definitely not be lowercase modifier. Uh-oh. Yeah, so here's where copy paste bites us, because we are actually applying the same modifier multiple times. But I think I've managed to get rid of it. Okay. So how was the talk? We have 3 different little Codys here. And if we take a look at the spacing, they should have 24 dp gaps between them. Maybe, I mean, we could put them into their own row if we wanted to. I guess that's the nicest way to do it. So let's put all the Codys in a row and do horizontal arrangement again, arrangement spaced by, and 32 was it? 24. So space them out by 24 dps. And as it reloads, we can see that that spacing does seem to match the design pretty okay. All right. And this is a convincing implementation so far. In the top header, I really want to add some padding around the bookmark icon so that the title cannot touch it so closely. So we can just put maybe a spacer between them. That seems easy enough. So this can be modifier with, I guess, 8 dps. So now this is the closest that the text and the bookmark can get. Maybe it could also be 12, but with 8 seems basically fine. Let's add some more tags to the sample data. Just so that we can see them wrapping in all cases. Oh, there's a bug. We don't have spacing between the rows. So I guess the 4 dps of spacing should apply in both directions. So let's find a place where we are going through the tags and do a vertical arrangement. Missing a comma, vertical arrangement, and we'll just use the same 4 dps of spacing. And now if we have 2 lines of labels, they will not be touching each other like that. Beautiful. Okay. What else are we missing? I saw an unused parameter here, which was suspicious. Lightning, right. So we've definitely already did this for page titles. So I'll just take a look there and grab the lightning icon, because it should be the same one. So now if we go back to the talk card next to the now label, wherever that is. If it's a lightning talk, we want to add the lightning icon. Let's check the size. It should be 16 dps, so this is the correct one. And well, I guess the content description here should be lightning talk. And yeah, that now appears in the row as well. Again, this also is here in dark mode all along, so we can compare and see that this indeed matches our dark mode design. This is going pretty well. I think we're like an hour into this component and it's already shaping up nicely. It would be a good time to add the other color variation though, where I hope the only difference is the background color, and that should be based on whether we have already had the talk or not, as far as I remember. So if we take a look here, yes, past events are grayed out. Oh, the text color also changes on past events. The bookmark color doesn't change, but maybe it should. I'm gonna write a note and ask design about it later. So past event bookmark color. Yep, okay. Okay, so if something's in the past, we need to change a bunch of colors. So we're gonna do a lot of animate color by statements here. So let's get on with that. First of all, let's make sure that we have something that's in the past. So I'll take this preview and I'll put it into a row, and I'll just create another talk card, which is the same as the previous one, except it will be a past event, and I guess for bookmarking, we'll just have it not bookmarked for simplicity. So now if that reloads, oh, I've definitely broken my UI. Interesting. So we have two card talks, which should be side by side, but we can only see one of them. If I remove this, then we're good, but not like this. The interesting part is that I don't think I have a fill max size or anything specified here. They are within a row. I mean, the row itself should be max width. I can do that. But again, something just explodes with two cards side by side. That's very strange. Let's try constraining them then. So let's do a modifier weight 1 on each of them. See if that helps us put them side by side. Yes, it does. Okay. While we're here, let's do a spacer. 16 dp width. Excellent. So now we have this huge preview, which again, I'm gonna have trouble fitting on the screen with the code and everything. But now we have this preview where one of the talks is in the past, and then the other one is happening right now. We can see that the timing doesn't fit anymore. But of course we wouldn't have the in 10 minutes there, for example. So here the time node could be null on that one. And as that reloads, we can see that now the UI fits a bit nicer. And then of course in 10 minutes would also not show up on something that's in the past. You know, it's a lot of variations to go through. Okay, let's try working with just these two cards. So If something's in the past, we want to start changing colors, as I said. So we'll go here to the very top. And I guess this affects the very top level column. So we'll just do all of our color selections at the root of the component. So we'll have a background color, first of all. Background color. Animate color as state. And if the state is in the past, then we'll have one background, which is... We'll have one background, which is card background past. Card background past does in fact exist. And otherwise, we'll have what I can only assume is our... Oh, okay, card background upcoming. KotlinConf theme. Colors. Card. I think this is just main background. But again, we have an extra variable here that we don't have in the color system yet. So in light mode, this is completely white. And in dark mode, this is 1919C. Okay, let's see. Let's see what color that is. Let's make sure that we search in Kotlin files. So that's... And that's just full color black, which is indeed what main background is. Yeah, so card, the regular card color is just main background. We just don't use the same variable for it for some reason. But that's all right. If I can find my way back here. Yeah, so we need to pick between... sorry, I don't know where to put this preview. I'm just gonna make it smaller so that we can focus on the code here. Maybe I'll also just zoom fleet back out a bit. Hopefully you can still see the code just fine like this. Okay, so depending on this, we want to select a different background, and then of course we want to make sure that we apply this, and it will be in the same shape as the surrounding stroke or border, and we can just call this private property card talk shape, so that we don't keep creating that over and over and over again. So instead of this, we can use card talk shape now. And hopefully if I save that, yes, we can see that indeed the past events have become gray. So that's good. Now we just do the same thing for text. So we can do text color, and if it's in the past, then apparently it is secondary text, otherwise primary text. Same for all of these strings down here. So again, if it's in the past, then it's secondary text, and otherwise it's primary text. And we need to use this text color for the main title. And then this is the icon on the top. We have the tags, which I think continue looking the same regardless of... So that's like secondary text color. Yeah, I don't think the text styling changes, so that's good. Then we have the speaker name, which is again just secondary text in both cases, so that's good. We can also look at light mode just to sanity check all of this. Maybe it's easier to see there. Secondary text. And then all of these place names and things like that. That's where we need to do some colors. So yeah, the location should be that color. The note will actually disappear if we're already in a past event, so we don't need to bother with that. The now label is purple or something, so we don't need to care about that part either. This is just an icon, and then the time text should also change dynamically. And what about the how was talk text? Let me make this larger and find the feedback section. So how was the talk is primary text. And if it's in the past, then it's also primary text. So that doesn't change. So I can just save this. And we should see that the colors have indeed updated. So now if something's in the past, then it has a lot more muted, grayed out text colors for most of the contents of the card. Okay. So that's pretty neat so far. I think we're pretty close with implementing this. The next interesting part would be the feedback icons. I think I'll do like, yeah, we can do like 15 or 20 more minutes. So let's take a look at the feedback icons and just see how we might start wiring those up at least. So whenever one of these little codies is clicked, it should become active, and then it should also pop down the feedback form. Actually, we hopefully have this written out here. So normally it looks like we've implemented it so far. And then if one of the codies is selected, it turns into your feedback. And I guess we don't open that by default. I guess we don't open it by default. And I think this could be internal state on the component, at least for a start. We do have a very long function here, so it's definitely screaming to be refactored. So maybe we can do that a bit. So this top column had some kind of name in the design. This was the, I guess, just the top block, time block, and feedback block. Okay. So this is the top block. Then we have a divider. Then we have the time block. And then we have the feedback block. So now these are all separate functions. I assume they have complicated signatures that we should make nicer, but for now we're just gonna be happy that these all work. And that our main function, that's the public entry point, is simpler than before. So feedback block then. This should have an internal state, which is the selected feedback. So this can be a remember mutable state of, and I think this is going to be like a nullable emotion, because that's what we map the icons to anyway. And oh, the codies are not clickable. Interesting. So these should definitely have an on-click on them. So whenever it's clicked, it should probably send back the emotion value and into the click listener. So we should just take the image and make it clickable, and on click it should call on click with emotion. And again, I'm just gonna disable the ripple animation on this as well, because it would probably look strange to have a ripple around that codie, but we can of course polish that a bit later. So let's first of all make sure that I fix all the previews here, because I already see that I broke them. So whenever one of these codies is clicked, let me just make sure that there's an empty function they can call. And now in our card component, whenever a codie is clicked, we should set the feedback, which should then be a var. We should set that feedback to the corresponding emotion. So yeah, basically just whatever we receive from each Cody face. Like this. And then, of course, we can now handle the selected state of Cody's. So each of these is going to be selected if its own emotion is the same as the feedback variable. Yeah, this is definitely a bit too complicated and error prone like this. Again, just like to do refactor state handling here because we definitely need to do that later. But for now, so we can progress, I'll just set it up like this. Hopefully hot reload has happened in the background. And now if I click a Cody, you can actually see that it does get selected. So again, just iterating with compose, using hot reload along the way, we can very easily just write code and see it come to life immediately, just like that. So each of these components, each of these little feedback blocks now handles its own state of whether there's an emotion selected. And we can see that if there is one selected, then instead of how was the talk, we should display something else suddenly. So actually, we only want this style text here if the feedback is null, and otherwise we need to have this your feedback dropdown. And that's actually an action component, so that will say your feedback. I managed to hit some hotkeys here. Let me undo that. So, okay, I just had a stuck key, I think. Now we should be good. So your feedback, the icon for this, let me just search for that real quick because I'm sure that we've used it before. I think it'll be arrow down. And if we check its size, we can see that it's 20 pixels. So the icon here, do we have 20 pixels? We do not. Let's try 16 then. Leave an icon, and then we need to know the action size. So each action is supposed to have a size in the design. Parent component is action. This is a size M, so we can see that this is a medium size action in the design. I think these will always be enabled. Is there a way to get these disabled if they're shown? I would assume not. We can just leave this enabled for now. And what have I not provided here yet? On click. Right. So whenever this action is clicked, we need to toggle the visibility of the detailed feedback form. So I guess this feedback should be more like, yeah, like selected emotion. And then we need another variable, which is feedback open. And this can be false by default. And whenever we click this action, we should basically invert feedback open. And we should also have an icon rotation here, which is something nice that this can do. If we take a look at the filters, we can immediately steal some simple code, which will animate a float as state. So whenever the feedback is, yeah, let's call this feedback expanded. So whenever it's expanded, we don't rotate the icon, and otherwise we rotate it by 180 degrees. And if I save that and we wait for the action to appear, well, that's clearly the wrong icon. What is this? It's some kind of down icon, but it's not an arrow. Oh, it's just the like up drawable. So we can use like up 24. perfect. So whenever this is not open, we're going to show a down arrow like this. And then when we click it, it's supposed to open, and then this little icon will flip around. And I think we have this fired in the wrong way. So we need to have how was the talk if we don't have an emotion selected yet. And if we select one, then the your feedback thing pops up. It is supposed to be primary text like this. So that seems correct. And once we click it, we should open the detailed feedback. So let's take a look at how that works exactly. So essentially, we just need to embed this feedback form right below this. So I think down here, we can do hopefully an animated visibility. And if feedback is expanded, then we want to show a feedback form. And this will take an emotion as a parameter, which is great because we already have a selected emotion. Let's do like if selected emotion is not null. Is that not good enough? Oh, we're just missing a lot of other parameters. So let's just add some values here. No, I guess SmartCast doesn't work here because we're getting this from a state and then with a delegate and things like that. So I mean, we'll just skip this for now, but it will work something like that. Unreachable code. How did we get into this state? So animated visibility. This should be visible if feedback is expanded. Oh, it's because of all the to-dos. I got it. It's just saying it's unreachable because our parameters will never complete. That's fine. So on submit, I don't know what to do yet. So we'll fix that later. We need a past parameter, which tells us whether we are in the past or not. I think I might have. Oh, right, this will control the color of the feedback form. So this is actually required. So let's make sure that our feedback block knows the timing here. So I think that was the time state that we created earlier, and we can add that as a parameter. And we're going to be in the past if this time state is oh, I broke the code with my comment here. So if the time state is card, what is it? Time state card talk time. That's an awful name. Well, we'll work on that. So if it's in the past, then it's in the past. There we go. Again, to do a rename, we're just going through the UI, and we'll clean things up later. And then does this in a modifier? Let's see what happens if we don't give it one. So supposedly we've hot reloaded. So if I select the Kodi now, we get a your feedback thing. And if I click that, we get a horribly mangled input field because we are using the wrong layout quite clearly. So let's see if we can fix that. So for now, everything in here in the feedback block is in a row. But of course, we actually want this drop down to go below the your feedback thing. So we'll just wrap this entire row in a column. We'll put that around there. We'll move the animated visibility outside. And if I save that and I select the Kodi and I toggle your feedback, then we have something that's a bit closer to what we're looking for. That's not terrible. What I'm missing here is as I select a Kodi, I think the field should pop down immediately. So I think whenever selected emotion changes to true, or well, changes to non-null, we should do an initial trigger that just sets feedback expanded to true. We could do this with a launched effect or something, but we could also just write this code in here. So I think that's what we'll do. So on select emotion, we can make this lambda that takes an emotion as a parameter. And other than setting the emotion, it can also make sure that feedback expanded is true. And then we can use this lambda as the parameter for each of the Kodi icons. So if I save that, now if I click one of the Kodis, even if we were collapsed before, we can see that the feedback form actually opens. And that looks pretty great. Are we correct? Whoops. Are we correct with the colors of the feedback form, I wonder? I think we are. So if it's in the past, then the card itself is gray and the feedback form is in white. Again, the border drawing here is definitely off. So we see that border logic I've written before needs to be adjusted. But then if we take a look at an event which is currently ongoing, then the feedback form itself has a gray background. All we're really missing here is some padding on the bottom. So if we take a look here, we can probably find that somewhere on the bottom of this input form, I guess on the bottom of the feedback block, we have 14 dPs of padding. So let me just explore this a bit. Yeah, it's 14 dPs of gap between this little top widget and the feedback form on the bottom, and it's also 14 dPs on the very top and the very bottom of the feedback form. So if I just bring this up, we can check where we're setting padding. So I believe we have the padding set already, but we did that on the row, which is almost correct. We need to move the vertical padding out of here. So we need to put that vertical padding up here on the column. That's the entire bottom block. So we can do vertical 14 dPs. And this also needs some spacing. So make sure we have the comma here. The vertical arrangement needs to be arrangement spaced by 14. Okay, I don't want to add 40 dPs of arrangement there or spacing there, but let me actually add it and then explain why I don't want to do that. So if we put a 14 dP thing there, then that 14 dP will exist between the widget. So there's this top row, which has your feedback and the little Kodi faces in it, and the feedback form on the bottom. So this is where this 14 dPs is added. If I exaggerate this, I add like 50 dPs and open this up, you can see that there is the padding or the spacing that we're adding. The problem with that is that as I open and close the bottom part, you can see that the spacing doesn't open and close with it, right? So what happens is this column in this state has a single item, and in this state it has two items. And as we animate away the bottom item, it waits for that bottom item to disappear, and when there are no longer two items in the column to have spacing between, it just removes the spacing immediately. So that gives this ugly effect where the bottom part slides away and then suddenly the spacing jumps and disappears. So instead of spacing on the column, what we can do is we can make sure that this feedback form itself, which we're navigating away, is what has the spacing somehow. And I guess we just add that as a modifier on the feedback form itself. So we can just add a padding a modifier here to the top and make that 14 dps. And if I save that, this should now be within the animated visibility, which means that whenever we animate it in or out, that padding is part of the thing that animates in. Which is pretty smooth. And now if we type something here, again, the feedback component is already dynamic enough that, you know, it adjusts its size as it should. We have the send button on it, which isn't hooked up to anything yet, so it doesn't do anything. If I select a different Kodi, we can see that the emotions change. Maybe that change should be animated. I wonder if we can do that. That would be quite nice. Can we do that? Let's see if it's easy to do that. So the Kodi icon is specified here. And as the emotion changes, I want to animate between the vector resources. I mean, I don't imagine I have a animate vector resource by state. Does image have a way of adjusting how the image is loaded? Doesn't seem like it. So what I want to do is that this resource will change over time, and I want to make sure that the swapping of the image vector is somehow smoothed out. How would one do that? Yeah, we have a painter for this. I mean, we could just add all three images into the component and then animate between them. That would certainly work. But I'm kind of hoping that there's a nicer way to do it. Let's see. Compose, animate, image vector change. Let's see if that gets us anywhere. Animated vector images. Well, that's not quite it. Yeah, we could use a crossfade. That makes sense. That's kind of what I was after as well. I mean, that's a solution. Oh wait, can we make this an animated content with a target state of emotion? What does that do? Let's see what that does. Oh, look. That pops up one of the Kodis, and if it's collapsed, we actually don't see that animation. That's not bad. We kind of get that for free. I don't love the animation. Like there's something strange about it, but that's just a matter of customizing the animation spec. So we can. Sorry, that's on the animated content. So this is target state. And then we'd need to customize the animation spec. Let's take a look at what the default is. Oh, it's doing a lot of things. It's scaling, it's fading, it has a delay. That's probably what we don't like here. So let's take this as it is and just add it as the transition spec. I'll add all of the imports that we need to find here. Probably scale in is missing together with fade out. Okay. So it's probably the scale in that we don't need. Let's see. So So I'm going to save that. We're going to see a bit of hot reloading. Again, we've been running this up for 45 minutes now and never rerun it. So if I do that, we are still flickering between states. All right, so I think one of the things we need to do here to make sure that we don't run into this problem is we need to make sure that we're using a local variable. So instead of using the current parameter of the composable function, we need to make sure that we're getting the value through animated content. So that's what we're using to select our images. So again, I think we've already reloaded. So now if I click one of these, it actually selects one of the Codys. That's very nice. And if I still have this on my clipboard, we can now try to do the more complex animation. Again, we're gonna wait for a second to make sure it hot reloads. Oh yeah, now we have Cody popping in. And I think this is a default as well. So I can go ahead and simplify all of this away. Again, we're doing a bit of a hot reload there. Yeah, that looks great. And we get this for free. So I can just click a Cody. Again, we can have arbitrary text in here as well. And it scales. And as I select the Cody, the appropriate image pops up on the bottom. That looks very nice. So I think with that, we are probably done for today. We have this beautiful component with the feedback part integrated. We have 4 different states for it with past events and current events. We have it scaling pretty decently on resize. I can also toggle bookmarks, and that still works. And I mean, the biggest challenge here will be to actually populate it with data in the real app, right? So this is going to be used as a list item on the screen, and we'll have to make sure that we feed the right data into it and that we connect all the click handlers appropriately. But that's all besides the basic work of building the component. The one thing I want to double check is this Cody face color, because I'm not sure if that's correct in both light and dark mode. So if we just take a look in dark mode, one of the selected Codys, this should indeed be a lot lighter. So if we just go into the Cody icon, this should be purple text colored. And right now it is what? It is Cody icon small. Where am I tinting these colors? So Cody icon small, if it's selected, we're passing in true. If it's selected, we're selecting the filled version. If it's not selected, we're tinting it to primary text, which is correct. This is supposed to be primary text, but if it's selected, it should be purple text. Why are we doing null here? We can hop over to the gallery. Again, we're just gonna, keep hot reloading all along here. We're gonna take a look at our preview function for the Cody icons. So these are purple when we don't apply tint to them. That's what I'm seeing here. So the small Codys that we are instantiating when they are selected, so when that is true, these are just purple by default. So it must be that the filled version is just indeed colored purple in the drawable itself. But that does not work for us because we need it to be a different color in light and dark mode. So we have a wonderful bug fix to enact here, which is that we get to move this into an animated color as well. So tint color will be animate color as state, and we'll make sure that we import that correctly. And Oh, I see. We need to wrap this into a color filter. So we actually need to pass tint color in there. And again, if it's not selected, it's primary text. But if it is selected, it should be purple text. And we can probably invert the if condition, and we can make sure that this is on 2 lines. And again, hot reload should have helped, and I think we do in fact have the right Kodi color now. So if we just go back from this to looking at our card talk previews, now if I select a Kodi in dark mode, it indeed looks a lot brighter, which seems correct. And we can also see that it fades between its different states. So that's quite nice. Okay. I think with that, I'm happy for now. There's obviously a lot of like layout tweaking here, and there is, you know, the issues with the feedback form that I've discovered. So if we really zoom in here, we can see that there are some wonky things going on here. So the feedback form is drawing outside of its bounds, and its corridors are definitely not connecting quite right. So I'll need to find a way to clean that up. But outside of that, again, we've built something very cool here. I think we restarted basically just once during this entire stream. Like we actually reran the app maybe just once because we are 52 minutes into the current run. And even that we only did because it was suggested to us that we upgrade our Firework version. So to recap, what I'm building here is different pieces of the KotlinConf app for next year. So if you're coming to KotlinConf, you'll be able to use this app on the ground at the event. If you're interested in the project itself, you can find the KotlinConf app repository on GitHub. So it's JetBrains, sorry, it's slightly off screen. So it's JetBrains / KotlinConf app. In here, we specifically have a KotlinConf 2025 branch, which is configured with hot reload and has all of the new components that we've been building here on stream. If you are not coming to KotlinConf yet, the call for speakers is now over, so I'm not going to promote that anymore. But of course, you can always grab a ticket for the conference days or for the workshops, both of which are an excellent time to learn more about Kotlin. And I think with that, we're going to wrap it up for today. Next time, I think, because we've built all of the components, I'll probably polish this offline, and then we'll get it reviewed and we'll get it merged. So next time, I think we'll be ready to start building screens out of the components that we now have, because we really do have quite a few. So looking at the previews, if I just remove the commented out bits here and bring back the gallery, and we'll wait for a large hot reload to happen, you can see that we can scroll through and see that we have indeed built, you know, dozens of different beautiful interactive components, all in Compose multi-platform, and all of them work quite nicely in this desktop application. And of course, this same thing also works on web and desktop. Well, this is already desktop. Also works on web and Android and iOS. Yeah. So I think we're pretty much set. Again, I'll clean this up. We'll get it merged, and we'll continue with screens probably next year, given that we're headed into the Christmas holidays here at the end of the year, and everyone's going to be on vacation anyway. I do want to shout out the Kotlin YouTube channel real quick. So if you have not been watching it yet, we have Advent of Code streams happening every day. Today's included super nice Compose visualizations. So if you've missed that, go and check that out. And we'll of course have 3 more days of Advent of Code in Kotlin. So I encourage you to have a look at those. With that, thanks for joining the stream today. Hope you've learned something interesting about Compose or about hot reload. And yeah, see you next time. Bye-bye.